Hi everybody, welcome back to Desert Isle Forge. My name is Tim, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make forged nuts, 5 different designs. But before we get started, I'd like to give a shout out to Peter Dams from Belgium. Peter made a pair of forging tweezers based on my video and sent me some pictures. Thank you, Peter. So on to today's topic. When you make a more complex project, you have to join the pieces, the components together, and there are 3 basic type of fastening methods. One is a permanent, one is a semi-permanent, and one is a non-permanent. The most common non-permanent type of fastening is nuts and bolts. Today we're going to look at how to make your own nuts, because you don't want to use the generic galvanized hex nuts from the hardware store. As a blacksmith, we can do better and forge our own nuts and bolts. These are the 5 different designs that I most often use. So the first design I'd like to show you is this Rustic forged cube nut. I was fortunate enough to forge thousands and thousands of this when I was an apprentice. This was very popular in Germany, and the shop I was an apprentice at had an investment from a German company, and we have to repay them in material, namely in forged nuts. So the first step is to prepare our stock before we cut the blank. I'm using a 5/8 by 5/8 square stock, and I'm going to take the edges off with this 8-pound sledgehammer. I'm doing this cold, so just heavy strikes on the edge. And I'm going around all 4 corners because remember, as I mentioned before, the anvil leaves a different impact than the hammer. This way it will be somewhat uniform. So this is our blank. After I remove the edges, I cut this at 5/8 long, so I have a cube of 5/8 by 5/8 by 5/8. I also marked the center of one side and drilled a pre-pilot hole that is smaller than the pilot hole of the thread I'm going to use for this nut. The purpose of this one is to hold the piece while I'm forging it with this stake. I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to hold it on the edge of the anvil, and that's how I'm going to forge the edges. Actually, I'm not going to use the anvil, I'm going to use this block because it has a sharper edge, and it's going to raise up my piece a little bit so I don't bump the stake into the end. So first step, you heat it up to forging temperature, and then we take our stake and just give it a little tap and hammer it into the hole. And then we come over to the edge and remove or hammer the edge rather, with a 2-pound hammer, and then rotate it 180 and go on the opposite side. Now this is normal that it bounces out. You just have to go back and forth and just put the stake back in order. Now this is a bit slower since I'm talking. I'm going to give another heat and finish the other side. Now with the second heat, I'm going to do the other 2 sides. Normally it's 1 heat. And then finally we take up the corners. There we go. So here's a close-up of the action. So here are a few nuts I forged just right now. You can cut them a little bit shorter and have a little stubby ones, and cut them a little bit longer, have a little bit elongated shaped ones. This is also scalable. You can go down as I guess 1/2 inch and go up to 1 inch or even 1.25 inch, 1.5 and have real heavy large nuts to make. 2 thoughts. One is this stake gets damaged every time, and you have to periodically clean it up and re-sand or grind the taper. And also have to keep in mind that depends on the size of your pre-pilot hole. If your taper is very thin and long, it's going to bottom out first, and it's going to be giving you a hard time to keep the piece on the stake, so you got to adjust the taper accordingly. Also, when I'm striking down on the edges, I swing the hammer down a little bit to create that little bit folded look, so that folds over the edge instead of just going right straight in. So the second design of forged nut is a simple spherical ball. I'm going to demonstrate this by using a blank that is 5/8 by 5/8 by 5/8 cube, and I drilled a pre-pilot hole on the side. I'm going to heat up the material to forging temperature, and I'm going to come back and explain everything as I go. So the first step in order to forge a bowl or a sphere is to forge the edges until we have an octagonal section. I'm going to show step by step again because of the explanation, but this you can practice and just make it with one heat. So now we kind of have an octagonal section. The next I'm going to heat it up again, and we take off the corners of each side this way. Now this way, tilting our stake down, reducing the corners quite heavily, and then the other corner, and you can see we are getting closer to a spherical shape. And then one more heat, and we're gonna finish it off. And the final touch up, just go around randomly and creating. I like to create larger surfaces instead of super smooth. That gives a little bit more rustic, more hand forged look. You can also take up your stake and just go around, creating a nice spherical shape. And here's a close-up of the same process. First the octagon shape block, and then we go and reduce the reforge the other corners down, and now to the edge of the block and creating the sphere. That's normal that it pops off, a reoccurring thing, so you have to bear with it. If you tilt your stake down more, it's less likely to pop up, but it still will happen. And of course all the hot scales are going on your hands, burning it. So it's not bad to use a glove at this point. So the piece was popping off of the stake constantly, and I had to re-drill the hole because we got too much deformation, which is normal, sometimes it happens. And now going around and evening it up. You want to remove all the high spot and the remnants of a cube shape. Sometimes you have it not quite spherical, and then also sometimes at the very top it builds up a little material, so you gotta flatten that down. Sorry about that. Again, the hole just deformed too much and rolls, but that's okay. So here are the finished products. As you can see, this design is also easily scalable. I have a small one here that is 5/8 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, and 1.25 inches in diameter. I used the same cube shaped blank, different sizes. I used exactly the same method, only the size of the hammer differed. So the next design I'm going to show you is these square spikes or pyramid shaped forged nuts. We start this design by forging a point at the end of our piece. I'm using a 5/8 by 5/8 square stock for this one. You can forge a long one or a shorter one, depends how long you want your forged nut to be. Here's our piece, heated to forging temperature, and I'm just forging a point using my 3-pound hammer. It doesn't have to be like super sharp or anything, depends what you want, but I like to leave a little bit of a dull tip, that way it won't poke anybody, but still will look somewhat like a spike. I'm going to take off the edges. Going around again to have a uniform texture and make sure everything is centered and straight. Next we're going to cut the tip off, leaving maybe a 1/4 inch of a flat surface, and then come back and show you the next step. So here's the piece after I cut it off, and I like to correct myself because I said leave a 1/4 inch flat area, but actually don't. Just cut it where the taper starts. You will have a much nicer result. I'm switching to my 2-pound hammer, and I'm gonna heat it up and forge these edges here. Try to push it this way out, and also I'm gonna take off the corners. Here's our heated piece, and we just go and take off those edges, try to push them towards the point, creating a little shelf there, and then take off the corners. Now you push some material down towards the bottom of it, that you're going to just sand it flat and then drill the pilot hole. So here we are, finished this design. As you can see, I talked about it, you can have a longer taper, medium or a short taper, depends what you like to do. And also I just sand it off the bottom. I did not drill the pilot drill because I don't know what kind of thread I'm going to use on this one. So design number 4 is this shallow pyramid top forged nut that I made out of also a square stock, flaring the top out a little bit and creating this shallow pyramid shaped feature. So to demonstrate this design, I cut a blank out of a 5/8 by 5/8 square stock, and I cut it about just under 1 inch long. To do this type of forged nut, your blank has to be 1.5 times long as the width or the circumference of the material. So this one, I just heated the top half of the material, and I'm gonna just forge a little pyramid kind of shape on that end, flaring the material down a little bit and try to create a nice pointy end. And here is a larger section, 3/4 by 3/4 inch, doing the same design, having a nice shallow pyramid at the top. And flaring it out a little bit. You could make a specialized tong that holds this square section nicely and firmly, but I don't do this that often to justify that, but I might do one in the future. So here is a slightly modified version of the same thing. I hammered the edges of the stock before I cut the blank, just like I did with design number 1. And then I do the same flaring on the top, creating that shallow pyramid shape. So here they are, the finished nuts. This is also a very easily scalable design. I have a larger 3/4 by 3/4 and a 5/8 by 5/8, but you can do larger and even a little bit smaller. Also, you can do a little variation to it if you remove, or not remove, but hammer the edges of the stock before cutting the blank, and that gives you a little bit more rustic look. Also, if you do a specialized tong that can grab these square stocks from the side, will help you to hold them firmly, and that way eases up the forging process a little bit. So the last design I'm going to show you is this flat square with the notches. I start this with a blank of a 1 inch by 1 inch by 3/8 of an inch square, and I drill a pilot hole in the center. That will help me to find the center later after it's distorted by the forging. I'm going to use this chisel to cut the grooves, and I have to use this tool that I made. It's a hardy tool that will hold my piece in place while I'm working on it. And I'm going to work from the front of the anvil. So here's our heated up piece. I just put it in the hardy and place the chisel at the corner and strike down. I strike down and try to do a nice deep cut. And then I'm going to turn 180 and do the opposite corner. Try to be on the corner. Sometimes it moves, but that's the beauty of a hand forged iron. And then I turn 90, do that corner, and then 180 again. I'm going to give another heat and come back and just touch them up a little bit. So here's another heat just to touch up my piece. Make those little grooves deeper. And have that kind of a star shape, 4-point star shape. And then when it cools down, I drill through with a pilot hole to have the right diameter for the thread. So here are the finished nuts. I made 2 extra ones using different punches, creating different designs. This type of forged nut is not really scalable, unlike the other ones I showed you previously, because it's just losing its composure. You can downscale it, but not really upscale it. I'm going to revisit this subject in a different video. I'm going to show you how to do these other designs. Alright guys, this is the end of today's project. I hope you learned something new and found something interesting today. If you ever made something that was inspired by my videos, please send me a picture and I can showcase you in the future. If you like to support my channel, please like, share and subscribe. If you like to visit my website, it's www.desertforge.com. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Bye!